Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Phi and this is Money Philosophy. Thank you for coming back for another day of Tesla analysis. Today we will take a look at technical analysis based on the hourly, weekly, daily charts and project out price target for the next couple of days and the next couple of weeks. We will also touch on the 3-to-1 split that Tesla announced on Friday after hours. We will see how that affects the stock price in the short term. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I am a growth stock investor and a trader, and I'd love to share with you my investing and trading journeys. Without further ado, let's get right into it. It's been almost a month since I last posted my video on this channel. I've been back to the office full time, and it's been extremely challenging to make videos in between lunchtime or right after the business day concludes. Usually I do that right before I have to pick up my children or in between lunchtime. So it's been, needless to say, a little bit challenging to come up with a routine video making schedule, but I'm trying to get back into it. And so thank you very much for being patient with me. Let's take a look at the daily chart here. So before we learn about the 3-to-1 split, this particular chart here signifies a bearish continuation, which means that likely on Monday, Tesla would gap down and continue to fall downward. If Tesla loses 688, which it did not by the end of Friday, but if it were to lose it Monday morning tomorrow, that would be terrible, and that would get us to 673 and potentially below. The recent support right now is around $622. The previous support is also around $600. So resuming to the low $600 is in order. The volume on Friday was 106%, predominantly sell volume. That tells me also that there wasn't a whole lot of trading activities from insiders who might potentially have information about the split. We all know that the split would be coming. But the announcement was probably a little bit surprising to a lot of people, myself included. So the 106% here did not include the volume of traders that would have otherwise traded had they known the split news is coming. One thing to note is that the volume was also 2/3 sell volume and only 1/3 buy volume. Over the last few weeks, Tesla has been consistently at or above 100%, which means that there is significant volume trading, with the exception of about a couple of days at the end of May was predominantly buy volume. The rest has been pretty much sell volume based on the bar chart here. The chart alone is not necessarily bullish. If we cut out the last 3 days of last week, we could say that it might have had a inverse head and shoulder, but with the last 3 days of last week, namely Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week, the inverse head and shoulder looks to be canceled. The death cross was formed around May 25th. And that usually signals further downside. Now, all of this was before the split news, and so we will take a look at historical pattern to figure out what Tesla might do tomorrow in conjunction with macroeconomics environment. So let's start with the QQQ, which is the ETF for the technology sector. On Friday, it also had 102% in volume, but predominantly sell volume. It moved down about 3.5% on Friday, with a gap down and continued to move down during the day. It is now trading well below 50 days SMA at $318 and definitely well below 200 days SMA, which is $357. It is now significantly decreased from the beginning of the year, and it is, of course, cause for concern. However, we do know that the RSI is currently getting too oversold, so it will not be much longer before it bounces. A bounce is different than a bullish reversal. So that doesn't necessarily mean that QQQ will reverse to the upside, but it probably reaching to a point where it should be bouncing. Looking at futures right now, as of the time of this recording, we are still at the end of the day on June 12th, Sunday. So a lot can happen from now until tomorrow. But based on futures, the NASDAQ right now is trading at negative $242, and the Dow Jones is at negative $371 here. So I do think that a reversal would be happening if the QQQ opens with a gap down and move down dramatically based on both inflation news and fear of rising interest rate in this coming Wednesday. The stock market as a whole could tank first thing in the morning and then potentially reverse given the oversold condition here on the QQQ. Let's take a look at Spider as well. So with Spider, the current support right now it is sitting on is around $388 to $389 with the recent low of $380. Spider also trade well below 50 days SMA, which is currently at $419. It formed a death cross well before the QQQ around March of this year, and it has been moving down since the month of March, which is when the stock was around $420. But I also think that the time for a bounce is near, although the oversold condition here on Spider is not as vigorous as QQQ. The volume, surprisingly, on Friday was a lot higher than QQQ at 126%, and the vast majority of that volume was sell volume. So once again, at the current support level, I see that it would try to dip below that support level only to reverse, at least for the day. Right now, Spider is trading at $384, which is $5 below the conclusion of Friday, which is not good. And I'm actually hopeful that it will be gapping down in the morning while all other indicators point to the upside in order to hope that Spider would reverse. Before we get to Tesla, I want to talk about TNX, which is a 10-year Treasury index. And this is an important indicator for interest rate. And interest rate is also a good indicator for the stock market, although it does not necessarily point to the hourly price movement, but it does point to a relatively medium to long-term trend. So starting right around December to January of this year, rates bottom right around this level, which is 13.14, and then it has been moving up. It revisit the 50 days SMA, which is the white line here, a couple of times, 1, 2, 3, 4 days here, and then one more time in recent history, but then it continued to go back up. It is also important to note that on Friday, the Treasury, the 10-year Treasury jumped dramatically, and it was up 3.6%, almost 3.7%. And this is as a result of inflation worse than expected. Some might have hoped that inflation tapered out, but it has not proven to be the case based on the current indexes. And so we see that the 10-year Treasury spiked dramatically on Friday, which caused the market to also react negatively. Now, going into Tesla, so at the outset, I also see that Tesla traded below 50 days SMA, right now at $860 for 50 days SMA. 200 days SMA is $914. Even though Tesla right now is at 696 at the conclusion of the week. After hours on Friday with split news, it went to around $715 and then retraced back. The reason that the 50 days SMA and 200 days SMA are mentioned here, even though Tesla is well below that, is that these are the two checkpoints for when Tesla resuming bullish. When Tesla gets to above these two levels, that's when it could be considered resuming bullish. But for right now, we're hoping for a bounce. Before we learn about the 3-to-1 stock split, Tesla looked pretty bearish. It is a bearish continuation here between Thursday and Friday of last week with the support of 688 and 673. I believe that Tesla would, but for the split news, Tesla would have moved down with a gap down and continued to go down further and potentially touch a $620 level. That said, because of the split, I believe that Tesla would likely try to stay bullish on Monday. Chances are it would probably have a delayed reaction where it doesn't move vigorously at the beginning of the day and then start moving with volume toward the back half of the day. Let's take a look at the reaction of the market last time when Tesla announced the split. The weekly chart for Tesla, the daily chart didn't allow me to go that far back, but here's the weekly chart. And the stock split was announced on August 11th of 2020, which is right around this candle right here. And then it started moving up shortly after. And as you can see, even on the day after the split announcement, Tesla moved around quite a bit and retraced a little bit before going higher. And then subsequently, for a few weeks in a row, it also moved pretty much sideways until around November when it started taking off. The split already took place at the end of August. So the rest of the months were just pretty much sideways. So for right now, Tesla is expected to have a 3-to-1 stock split. I think that with a split of 3-to-1, the stock price would be right around $225, give or take. That doesn't necessarily entice retail investor a whole lot. Considering Apple is in the $140 level, Amazon is $120 level, or actually with the recent retracement, Amazon is at 110 now. Google will have also a 20-to-1 stock split in July that puts it right at around $110 level. Tesla, be it at $225 or $250 after the split, is not necessarily enticing for a retail investor. That said, the people that own Tesla long term doesn't necessarily care about the actual value of the stock price, or care about the total investment in the company, regardless of how many shares that they own. So the stock split, as we all know, it is not a fundamental play. It is just for various effect, right? Whether it's a marketing effect, whether it allows entry for a retail investor, whether it has more shares to give to employees, and so on and so forth. It does not change the fundamental of the company. So in the long term, that should not affect the stock price. But we are also traders in addition to investors. So we look at the volatility right after the announcement in order to determine whether or not there is an opportunity to trade Tesla. So let me go back to the hourly chart here. So Tesla, the pivot points are probably not as relevant tomorrow because of the split news. And we know that 796 is a very strong, used to be a very strong support, now a very strong resistance. So that is a short-term number that I'd be looking at, not necessarily for tomorrow, but in the short term if Tesla does run. The upper end of the pivot point tomorrow is 716, which also happens to be the high point of Friday right after the split announcement. The resistance above that is 720 and above that is 738. And so those are the points that I'd be looking for. The previous high over the last 2 days was $766. That is about $70 from where we're at. It is pretty difficult to attain tomorrow, but it is possible nonetheless. My expectation is that Tesla would get to above 738, and between 738 and 766 it will rest somewhere around there, and then the next day it could go all the way up to about $800. Again, this is purely based on split news play, and that is my hope more than my anticipation or expectation. So let's take a look at probability tomorrow. As I'm recording this message once again, we do not see pre-market yet. So a lot of these probabilities would be out the window by the time you guys listen to this video. So the first probability would be when Tesla opens in the morning, it would open with a gap down just like the rest of the market. And then it would quickly close that gap and go bullish, right? To have a gap down, Tesla need to open below 696, which is right around, let's say 672 is a good support, or even 688 is a good support. If Tesla does open right around support levels here, it should quickly close the gap, get back to 696 and above that. And it would easily temporarily get to the high aftermarket high on Friday, which is around 715. It could retrace a little bit right around there and continue to go back up. If Tesla opens flat, I expect it to go up and then retrace and continue to go up. I view the split news as a temporary positive catalyst, a very, very temporary catalyst. It is not a long-lasting one. It doesn't propel the next bull run necessarily because the entire macroeconomics is really terrible. However, it is a short-term positive catalyst that probably would enable either retail or institutional investors to buy Tesla should they want to buy Tesla. The fundamentals don't change, so those that already understand Tesla will continue to buy regardless, and especially if there is a retracement opportunity. The third probability would be when Tesla gap up. Right now, Tesla is at around $710 at the conclusion of Friday, including after hours trading, and that would be about $14. I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla has a $20+ gap up in the morning. Now, if the entire future is still red, Tesla would probably retrace to close that gap, meaning that it would go down to close the opening gap up, and then it will continue to go back up. So 3 scenarios, regardless of where Tesla opens, I expect Tesla to go in the green at some point during the day. Now, how green is it and how bullish Tesla would be is contingent upon volume and price action that day. We know that the resistance points are 720 and 738, but we don't know what the volume is like. So it is impossible to estimate where it would get to. The proclivity of the bullish move is high, and I expect it to could potentially get up to $800. But I don't think that it would get there tomorrow. It would likely make a run for around 738. And if it gets to above 738, that is a good sign. Back to the daily chart real quick here. So 738 right here is about the midpoint of Thursday before the stock retraced all the way down to 720 on Thursday and continue to move down further on Friday. If it could get back to 738, can you imagine the candle that goes from $688 all the way to 738? That is a very big green bullish candle. That means that the subsequent days Tesla would likely capitalize on that momentum and continue to rise further. We also need to note that on Wednesday, the Fed would announce interest rate hike, if any, for the month of June. And so that could have a dramatic effect on stock. If the Fed follows expectation, which is right around 0.5%, then the stock market would likely to go green in the back half of Wednesday. If the Fed hike anything more than 0.5%, the market could go red. And so it's almost impossible to guess where Tesla would be, regardless if it has split news or any other good news lining up. Tesla would also be affected. But for right now, for Monday and Tuesday, I expect Tesla to be in the green. And depending on the volume, we could potentially see a trading opportunity. And lastly, if Tesla has major volume within the first 10, 20, 30 minutes of the day, then we could potentially see it running further. So let's take a look at some option play here. This is a shorter term play. For just the momentum that could last the next day or two. So I'm going to choose June 24, which is next Friday expiration. And if I'm looking at, let's say, $740, right now we're at around $2,000 in premium for $740 strike price. Now, if Tesla gaps up tomorrow, this number is a lot higher, but if it gaps down, this number is potentially could reach the 1,500 level, which is really, really good deal for just about $40 out and have 2 weeks out. So keep that in mind. We can always go a little bit further out, such as 760 right now at around 1450. I wouldn't go too further out. I wouldn't go beyond 775 if I want to be out of the money. And right now that number is around 1100. Again, I would love to be able to purchase these premium at a lot lower price than these, but that is dependent on tomorrow opening. If, once again, if the market is red and Tesla has a gap down, I would take the opportunity to bet against the market for a moment because Tesla does have good news. How much weight do we have on split news? I think the surprise factor does cause a little bit of buying activities. And once again, depending on the volume, it would determine whether it is a long-lasting run or just a fake out. And because of that, I will also take my profit pretty quickly if it is profitable of a trade early on in the day. I wouldn't also be surprised if Tesla opens going sideways, indecisive for a few minutes or for half an hour to an hour before starting to run. So Tesla usually have that delay reaction a little bit, either that or institutional investors just kind of sit on it and observe it for a couple of hours before jumping in. But generally speaking, I would expect Tesla to go green tomorrow. Anything can happen tomorrow, Monday, June the 13th. So keep an eye out for it. Do not take what I say as Bible. Research Tesla chart really well. Look at volume really well. And good luck to all of us.